The fact of the matter is we do have challenges in this country, especially related to security. That's not a secret to anybody. Certainly, we have no interest in pretending as if that's not a problem. But what we need in the country now, aside from an effective strategy to deal, in finality with this issue of insecurity, is a thinking and intellectual opposition in the country. You said it was the Senate, but if you look at the composition of those involved, you'd recognize that it's actually the minority component of the Nigerian Senate. You had chants
that was stated clearly.
Right. Yeah. Well, exactly. So it's a block of senators, not the entire Senate. And I think what's also important is if you heard the chants, it's Lawan must go, Buhari must go. That is what they were saying. We need to go beyond gimmickry in the country. Gimmicks are not going to solve our problem.
Yes,
I want to be very clear about what I mean.
I'll let you land on that,
yes.
just to put this in, so we have better perspective.
Absolutely.
Femi Falana, respected senior advocate of Nigeria,
right, in
joining the rally, the protest, where the support for ASU by the NLC. He actually did call that, made a call that Buhari must go.
No, let's not join issues. I'm not referring to the NLC. I'm not referring to the respected senior advocate of Nigeria. I'm talking about the action that took place today by political office holders, by those entrusted by the Nigerian people to help the federal government, to help the executive administration find solutions to these problems.
Right.
Those who are holding the purse strings, they're not held to the same standard as citizens who do not have the official power to make those decisions that will actually lead to the conclusion of this problem. So when I talk about an intellectual opposition, what do I mean? Let me be very concrete about this.
Right.
When I say gimmickry, I'm talking about actions for a kind of political theater to make the point that these people are incompetent, they're terrible, they should go so that you will elect us. That's not what we're interested in. Nigerians are interested in solutions. So what I'm saying is that if we have a thinking and intellectual opposition in this country, what they would be thinking about doing, or working toward doing rather, is even if it's to engage international security consultants to come up with a clear plan, an implementable plan, to say, look, this is what the current administration is doing. We don't agree with it. We don't think it's working. This is what we want to put on the table. And if you elect us, we will now execute on this.
But according to them, they have put so much on the table. They have come up with all kinds of suggestions and ways forward to tackle Nigeria's security challenges. But they've been jettisoned by the president. That's what they're saying.
What are those suggestions? Are those suggestions that the president should resign? Are the suggestions that the security chief should be sacked? These are the kind of simple-minded statements and quote-unquote solutions that don't lead anywhere. We spent almost 4 or 5 years asking the president to sack the previous service chiefs, that if we do that, all will be uhuru. That is what the opposition made everybody to believe. They were sacked, they were replaced, right? We began to see gains and everything. Now we're having a different sort of problem that's coming up. Now, the solution, again, is it to sack everybody? If you go to the United States now, where you have school shootings, shootings in malls, shootings on the streets, shootings everywhere, nobody is saying that Joe Biden should resign, or that they're looking at, okay, what is it that we actually need to do to solve this problem?
Yeah, but from where Nigerians stand, it does seem that this government does not have solutions.
Let me just land my point, please, if I can, without being interrupted on this.
Yeah.
We also understand that the local and state governments have a role to play in internal security. We know that it's not just a federal issue.
Right.
There has to be effective collaboration. I am not suggesting that we have all of the answers, or that we have done everything exactly right, or that every leader across the security agencies are doing everything exactly the way that it should be done. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that it benefits the nation if we have an opposition that is thinking instead of making political statements like the one that was made in the National Assembly today. That's all I'm saying.
Your statement sounds a bit political too.
But mine is actually in the interest of the nation. If I was being political, I would tell you that President Muhammadu Buhari and the service chiefs have all the solutions. Nigerians should just be patient with us. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that the opposition are made up of Nigerians. They are Nigerians who are seeking power. So what we're saying is, if you're seeking power, fantastic. It's your right. In fact, good luck in the elections. But what we're saying is that it is in the interest of this country if you are part of the solution and not part of a political theater that leads to nowhere. That's all I'm saying.
And that solution seems to be what they're trying to come up with. But let's come to the issue at hand. With all of this events in recent times, the security challenges, talking about the change of name, from NNPC to NNPC Limited, seems to be the last thing on the minds of Nigerians. But you know what they say, a rose by any other name will still smell like a rose. The more things change, the more they remain the same. Exactly.
That's a loaded introduction. You've already given your opinion on the idea.
No, it's not an opinion, because I'm reflecting what people are saying, and it's my job to do that.
Perhaps the way to go now would be for me to clearly explain what the differences are, so that people know that it's not just a cosmetic rebranding.
Right.
First and foremost, the new NNPC Limited emanates from the Petroleum Industry Act that, of course, was delayed for 20 years for obvious political reasons. It has now been done. Now, what this means, these are the differences. First and foremost, aside from moving from being a public corporation that was essentially reliant upon the National Assembly and the Federal Executive Council to be able to, obtain approvals for various investments that they wanted to make, whether it's upstream, midstream, or downstream, whether it's retail, filling stations, or joint ventures in the deep offshore and in the inland projects, they would have to go through a long bureaucratic process. And there's a lot of, we all know the kind of give and take that has happened historically in the National Assembly. What the President has done, and credit to the 9th National Assembly under the Senate President for showing the political will to get the PIA done, because what it did is to free the NNPC Limited from all of this bureaucratic and political interference, meaning that they are now in position to take independent investment decisions on behalf of the 200 million stakeholders in the country, to be able to effectively compete with other oil companies around the world. What we had before was a situation where, I'll just give you an example of filling stations, for example. The NNPC, 44 years in its existence, it took them about almost 20 years to start the first retail filling station in the country, a little bit more than 20 years. 2002 was the first NNPC retail filling station under the Obasanjo administration. Today we have about 500 or so retail filling stations across the country. Now, the group CEO Mele Kyari made the announcement at the unveiling of the new NNPC that we're going to move from 500 retail filling stations in the country to over 1,500 retail filling stations in the country within the next 6 months. 6 months. It's time-based. So that's something that Nigerians can hold us to account when we get across that 6-month mark. Did we do it or did we not do it? But that's what he has said. The reason why he can make that commitment is because he now has the financial and decision-making independence to be able to make policy on the basis of profit-seeking, profit maximization for the sake of the stakeholders. That's number one. Number two, it's no longer, the NNPC is no longer has to abide by public sector regulations that slow things down, such as the Public Procurement Act, such as the Fiscal Responsibility Act, such as the Treasury Single Account. And the reason why that is because 2 new special purpose vehicles have been created for the purpose of the new NNPC Limited's operation, which is the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated, one vehicle, and the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, MOFI. Those 2 SPVs are now going to hold the federal government's stake in terms of the revenue generation from the NNPC Limited, instead of having everything in one central pot where you have all the confusion and all the give and take. They're now able to operate independently with 20%. I need to state this. 20% of all of the profits on oil and gas projects under the new NNPC Limited will now be under the total independent custody of the NNPC Limited, to be able to reinvest on the basis of the discretion and decision making of the leadership.
Let me come in here. With all of this said, beautiful, it sounds fantastic on paper. The question is how. Okay, great. We don't even have all all day. Yeah, we don't have the time.
Yes.
But how exactly will this improve the lives of 200 and something Nigerians? We're told that we're all shareholders, right? And our interests will be protected. How are we going to be getting dividends? When will the dividends roll in?
Fantastic question. So that's the reason why I started with the filling station example, just to make it practical and understandable for everybody. When you have that kind of scale of retail opportunity within the NNPC Limited, when you have 1,500 stations instead of 500, what does that mean? That means Nigerians are going to have more opportunity to go to those NNPC filling stations and do what? Purchase their fuel, purchase their engine oils, purchase even small snacks or whatever it is that they want to buy there. That is money that is going to be ultimately spent into the coffers of the NNPC Limited, that is now going to be part of the revenue generating base of the entire federation. So instead of paying a Total that will now be taking their funds, back to France, or Shell taking back to home country, you're now bringing it basically to where it will rotate.